could say just liking the music. When you write, you kind of spill everything out on the table, and you take a look at it, and sometimes you go, "Oh, this is great." Other times you go like, "Oh, I don't like any of it." And fortunately, I just started to like what I was doing, and I had also the good feedback of the people you mentioned, the band and Kevin, and that's helpful sometimes, because sometimes you spill everything out on the table, and you say to yourself, I just don't know, and so it's nice if somebody comes along and goes, "Hey, you got some really cool stuff here." So that those early stages of taking a look at my ideas and realizing that they may have some value was very inspiring. Well, maybe one of the big differences in those days, of the King of Clubs days, I did really extensive, complicated demos where I would, I'd spend a day just on writing the bass part. I'd spend a day, figuring out the bongo arrangement, and it would, the demos were, might as well have been the album. And then I'd just bring in people that played the other instruments better than I did to kind of replay what I had written. And so I was really, a dictator when it came to the parts. Since then, I've loosened up a great deal, and I really have gained a trust in musicians besides myself. And so a lot of times now I just prefer to have no demo, and I'll just say, here's a few chords, this is the map of the arrangement, and let's fill it in with what everybody is feeling today. And I think the result is better, and certainly a happier experience for the musicians, because everybody's a little bit more in control of their own destiny, rather than having to just robotically follow what I've mapped out. So I think that's a big difference. It's just allowing the other musicians to be themselves and to help bring the song to life. It's just easier. I mean, the songs on I Can Destroy, the time spent is it's so much easier than the months and months of demoing that I would do for a record like King of Clubs. And I think that if you compare the two, I think I Can Destroy is a better record. So it just works out better in both ways. Less time, more fun, better results. I like everything about it. Well, I did just start a Pandora station for myself, based around Dio. Just sort of rediscovering my metal roots, listening to a lot of Ronnie James Dio. And man, he's really the best. I just if you're gonna listen to metal, put on Dio, and it's such a great experience. But anyway, back to me. I never know exactly where I'm gonna go. It's a lot of times the things that I do are kind of a response to what I did before, and a lot of times it's different because of that. So if I do a metal record, the next record might be a pop record, just because I kind of want a different flavor than the last time. And then if I do a pop record, maybe I want to do a blues record next. And that's probably not the best decision as a self-marketing, business person. If you're a marketer, you want to sort of have a brand and have it be what it is. You see a box of cornflakes, you want to open it up, and you want cornflakes to come out. And with me, you open up the box and you don't really know what you're going to get sometimes, and I don't know either. And fortunately, I've, it's maybe I could be more famous if I just stuck to one thing, but what I lose in fame, I might gain in sanity and personal enjoyment. So just apologies to every fan who, when I veer off track for a second, they're like, "Hey, that's not what I like," but I think other people might go, "Hey, this is my favorite thing." So it's in the end, I'm just true to my whims and that's kind of what they are. But it keeps me interested, and it keeps me from getting burnt out on any one thing. And I think if I just stuck to, if I did like only metal or only pop or only blues, it's I would lose some of that passion that I have, and I think that's the thing I'm trying to sustain more than anything. I definitely have to schedule my time a little more strictly. I look back at the days when I could just like turn on TV and just sort of noodle around, with no real goal in mind. And now I have to be very goal directed, just because my time is so limited that it's like, if I've got a half an hour, it's like, okay, I got to get something done. And so I don't have quite as much, relaxed whittling time. And when I do, I enjoy it so much. The other day I put on an episode of Game of Thrones. I actually had like a spare hour. And I just let my actually I was practicing this particular, new set of notes I came up with. But, I was able to like just relax and kind of digest it and let my fingers run over the neck. And it was like, that was heaven. But also it's great having a boy, and that opened up a whole completely new part of my life that I really enjoy as well. So it's just finding the time to squeeze that thing in and sleep too. Well, I'm his self-appointed music educator, so I make sure that he knows what the sort of thing that I wish my students knew, and of course a lot of them do. But I'll never forget when I first started teaching guitar, and I would make references to music because I just assumed that people would know them. So, for example, I'd be teaching like the Mixolydian scale. So I'd say, oh, it's just like that melody that happens in the middle of Strawberry Fields Forever, the Beatles tune. And I just assumed everybody had heard that, and people would be like, what? Oh, I know Hey Jude, but Strawberry Fields. I'd be like, you don't know Strawberry Fields. I just from having grown up with parents that had the Beatles catalog, I just sort of assumed that it was part of the culture. I figured everybody's tried a McDonald's cheeseburger. Everybody's what's the sayings. Everybody knows about that Darth Vader's the bad guy in Star Wars. And everybody's heard all the Beatles songs. I just thought it was like a common thing, and if you're in this day and age in Western culture, but it turns out it wasn't. A lot of people this is the '80s, so it'd be like, well, I know all the Dokken albums. It'd be like, well, that's cool, but you got to know the Beatles. And so in educating my son, I just make sure he's got to know the Beatles, he's got to know Elvis, he's got to know Little Richard, he's got to know Rock Around the Clock, a lot of the early rock and roll stuff, because that really sort of sets up the ear for then AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and then Van Halen and Ozzy and Sabbath, So, but you got to start with Hound Dog, and Jailhouse Rock. So he's heard those a lot. Oh, let's see. Well, in a way, the new album, the solos were sort of what I got around to last, because I really was looking at it as a song album and as a band album, even though it's a solo album. So a lot of the efforts that I put in was to orchestrating the three guitars, because I also had Tony Spinner and Freddie Nelson playing on it. So we had to work out, you can't really improvise a three-part harmony. We just don't have that much ESP. So we spent a lot of time just working out how those should go. And then for the solos where I do my own thing, I just tended to improvise those on the spot. So there I was just relying on the fact that I've played guitar for 40 years and I've got some vocabulary that I can sort of just, I could throw out there if I need to. But and I like that combination. It's nice to have some stuff that's really composed and melodic and thought out, and it's nice to have some stuff that's just fiery and in the moment, and it's just has a little more of the feeling like it. You're a little more. It's a little edgier. You might screw up, but if you get it, it's great. And so it has both of those elements on the record. Oh yeah. Well, that's kind of the nice thing about working with Kevin. Kevin Shirley is he's got a really good ear and sense of like what little the things that the musician might initially consider to be a mistake, and Kevin will go, no, that's really cool. That's and I think any musician has that thing like, well, I want to play the notes perfectly, and I want to have every note be clear. And I remember on the song "Everybody Use Your Goddamn Turn Signal," one of the first solos, I kind of have this little, I don't know what it is. It's not really a wrong note. It's just a sound. It's like my fingers sort of making a little greasy slip. And I first heard that, I was like, "You're gonna leave that?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's great." And then it's come to be one of my favorite parts because it's different, it's not like a bad note. It's just a sound that you get from, and I'll never be able to make it again. I don't know how I did it. And when I listen to old like Led Zeppelin records, I mean, that's sort of the genius of Jimmy Page. It's like almost everything he does is like that. So I'm happy to tap into it, a little bit of that because that stuff is. I grew up with that, so I love that feeling. Oh, let's see. Well, they're both great stuff. I think one of the Laney things is actually when I was doing that tribute concert with Mike Portnoy and Billy Sheehan and Gary Sharon. We did a tribute to The Who called The Amazing Journey. And I think we only did 3 shows. And we used rental gear for every show. And one of the shows they had Laney's, because at the time I was endorsing Laney's. So I was like, that's what I want to get. And so I had Laney's for the one show. And then I think we played in New York and they didn't have Laney's, so I used Marshall's. And the thing that I found was this was The Who, and Pete Townsend really he doesn't use like a fire-breathing, distorted, Randy Rhoads kind of a sound. His sound is much cleaner, much punchier. It's almost like an acoustic guitar, but louder. And, certainly there's sometimes when he presses on a fuzz pedal and gets distorted for a solo, but a lot of the rhythms that you'd find in The Who are much, pretty clean. And so, that when I used the Marshalls for that, I found that I could sort of get both. I could get this real punchy, clean sound for chord rhythm, and then still the leads were cutting through. And over the years, that I just encountered that a lot. Because a lot of times, Laney is not as popular of a brand, so a lot of times when I travel, the Marshalls would be the only thing I could get. And every time I'd plug in, I'd just be like, man, this is punchy. It's just getting the notes through more. Now, I still, looking back, I don't want to, I really should give Laney credit because I've done a lot of recordings that came out great, but it just tended to be more in the metal direction. And, certainly you could play metal on a Marshall, no problem, but it just seemed like the amp allowed me to get a little bit cleaner, a little bit punchier, and I like that. And plus, I can just get them wherever I go. If I need to rent an amp in Russia, the Marshalls are there. Well, that'd of course be an honor, and I don't know what I'd do differently. It's funny, like the same thing with DiMarzio pickups, which I've used for decades, and a lot of times they'd say, like, "Do you want to do a signature pickup?" And I'd be like, "I like the ones I have." The Air Classic and the Super Distortion and the Tone Zone. There's really nothing that I'm missing. And finally they came up with one that they just hadn't released yet, and it happened to be a hum canceling single coil that and they said, well, we know that you're using a guitar that has these in it. Do you want to call it a signature model? And I said, sure. But that was one really they just sort of gave me an opportunity to put my name on it because it was going into one of my guitars, but it was not like a ground up design. The ones that are ground-up designs would be like the Ibanez Fireman, and to some extent the PGM. But if I had an opportunity to design a Marshall, it wouldn't really be that much different from what they make. So, I'm pretty happy with them as they are. Kind of. I mean, we've done endorsement things across the years, and that's the only drill that I use. So I would say yes, but it's not always that active. We sort of, do little, events here and there, and then there's space between. It's been great. I mean, it keeps me really busy. It's because it's relentless. There's no holidays or weekends. They're constantly getting videos from the students. But in a way, to me that's what it is to be a musician. It's like breathing. You don't take a holiday from breathing, and that's kind of what music is to me. So it makes sense, and I really enjoy going on the set every day and seeing what the students are asking me and what they're interested in. How has it affected my music? Well, it's I think particularly a lot of the students, of course, have come because they're interested not only in rock guitar, but they're interested specifically in me. And because of a lot of the videos and the music that I've played in the past, people come to me because they want to tread scales. And what I found is that many of the people that are interested in that tend to be lacking in other areas. And that makes me want to really help them, because I love those other areas. I love bending strings, and I love great phrasing, and I love, just straight ahead, simple rock and roll. And so, because I see this sort of imbalance in some of the students, it's sort of a reflection, I begin to see that in myself. And so it'll lead me in my writing and my playing to try to repair that balance. And as much as I have fun with the athletic stuff, I try to come up with just great riffs and hummable melodies and stuff that gives you a rock face and makes you move your shoulders when you listen to it, and not just look at it like the judge at a who are the Olympic people that hold up the numbers, the skating judges. Sometimes I feel like the prog rock is like an audience full of skating judges. After the song is over, they're just going to hold up a number and just see how you did. And that's, there is, athleticism is entertaining, and it does have drama, and I like that. I like to have that element, but I don't want only that element, because to me, there's so many other elements of music that are beautiful and exciting. Well, it's the third one I've done, and the very first one I did, I had no idea what was going to happen, but it turned out great, fortunately, and thanks to other great teachers and a lot of planning. And the second one was just like it was kind of perfect. It really went great, and so I just hope I don't screw it up this time, because the second one was so good. But I think it'll actually. If it's possible to be better, it will be, just because I've had more experience with it. I've got great, fellow. I feel weird calling them teachers, because these are people that are, seasoned performers, and they're in big bands like Megadeth and Guns N' Roses. But it's people that also have the mindset where they're able to communicate, which not all musicians can do. I mean, some musicians are fantastic players, but they just haven't used that part of the brain that's able to communicate what they do as well as do it. And I think everybody that I've got here is also a great communicator. And of course, we'll be jamming with each other, with the students. We'll be hanging out. We have breakfast together, and it's just a nice getaway. Because sometimes, I'm a professional musician, but I still, when you come home, you've got your family. Music isn't always supported, in the home. Sometimes it's like, why don't you mow the lawn, or what, you're in the basement playing too much. Come up and do something with the family. And of course, it's good to be balanced as well, but it's also nice to just be unbalanced sometimes and just, put your entire focus into music and hang out with people that feel the same way. It's inspiring. Oh man, I love jamming with Bruce, but we haven't talked about it. But it would be cool. I mean, in a way, the album I just did was like a 3-guitar album with Tony Spinner and Freddie Nelson. But Bruce is Bruce. He's got his own fingerprint, and so it'd be great. That's a good idea. Whoever planted that seed, I like it. Strangest fan experience. Oh man. Well, all I can do is say that the first one that comes to mind, which is probably not the strangest, but it's the first one that comes to my mind, which I was in Australia doing a clinic, and someone wanted me to sign their van, and I don't think there were any other signatures on the van. I think I was the first and maybe the last, and the van had been abused. It had some wear and tear, and so I hope I didn't offend him, but as my dedication, I wrote "Rust Never Sleeps," which is the famous line from Neil Young, or album title, and that seemed to be appropriate for what was occurring to the van. Oh, well, the first one that comes to mind is the first night that Racer X sold out the Troubadour. It was our third or fourth gig, and we really had no idea if anybody was going to show up. It was still early enough in all our careers where, we had invested all of our money, rent money, food money, into promoting the show. And if no one had shown up, we would have been on the street. And it was packed to the rafters. It was so packed we could barely make it from the front door to the backstage. And that was the first time when I thought, I might just have a chance here. And so that to me was a real transition. It was going through a door of being like in a band where nobody knew who we were to a position where like, wow, we're in LA. This is one of the top clubs, and we just sold the thing out. You too. Thank you so much. Rock and roll.
Everybody use your eyes, look at this beautiful day. Everybody use your ears, listen to me when I say now. Everybody use your gosh.